Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey, and today I'm going to talk about the 7 accounts everyone needs to reach financial freedom. And these are typical kinds of accounts that most people usually already have, and I'll go through them specifically as to what I would suggest because this is what I do and I believe that it will help me reach financial freedom. So I hope it does the same for you too. And it's important to have these kinds of accounts because your money needs to have a landing place to go. And you can think of it as giving your money a job to do, that it's not just meant to land in one spot and then get spent on whatever, but that you are trying to actively repurpose that money as soon as it hits one of your types of accounts to then do something in particular, whether it's just accruing a little bit of interest in like a checking or savings account, or maybe it's accruing a lot of interest through investments in a retirement investment account. And you can also be getting money back through spending in your credit card. So I'll go through all of these in more detail one by one, and I hope that these will be helpful to you to reaching financial freedom for yourself. Growing up, my parents and family members always stressed the importance of saving money. So I had a few youth savings accounts growing up that I would usually store my birthday and Christmas gift money in them. And although it wasn't all that much money, it was enough money that over several years I was able to save enough to buy my first used car. And that was pretty great because as a teenager, I'm sure the first thing a lot of us want to do is be able to learn how to drive and have the freedom that having a car gives us. And in a similar way, money also gives us that sense of freedom if we accumulate enough of it. And I also grew up watching the DuckTales cartoon, and it always resonated with me seeing Scrooge McDuck swimming in his vault of gold coins. And so I'd like to think that when we have enough money, it gives us plenty of financial optionality that we can do almost anything with. And if we know how to allocate that money in certain types of accounts, we can do a lot of things. So it's all about having financial optionality that gives us access to this feeling of freedom. And if you also are on the pursuit of having as much financial optionality as I am, I'd love if you could please like my video and subscribe to my YouTube channel because I greatly appreciate it, and I'm here to help you achieve financial freedom. Thanks. Before I go further, I just want to reassure you that everything I'm suggesting is not sponsored and I don't get anything for talking about any of the names in this video. So just think of it as I'm trying to help you out as though you were my sibling or one of my close friends, and I hope that helps. Everyone should have the first type of account of a checking account, and this is useful to serve as your first landing spot for your paycheck money coming in. And it can also be useful if anyone is paying you through Venmo, or if you're a freelancer or self-employed and people also want to pay you, you might want to have a business checking account. So all in all, a business or a personal checking account is really useful because that's usually the first place that we put our money. And then we usually link the checking account to other types of accounts, whether it's to a money market or savings account or to our investment accounts. So I think it's a great place to start in having a checking account because you can then deploy that money to whatever you need to deploy that to. And that also especially pertains to your bills, or if you have rent payments, and if people are still using checks, then you might need to share a check with someone, or if you're going to someone's wedding, it's helpful to have those paper checks that you can make out to someone's name, and then you can include that in your wedding gift present to someone. So all in all, having a checking account is super important, but don't leave your money in there for too long because it's not going to grow very much. And you might come across a few types of checking accounts that might be considered high yield or give you very little minuscule percentage points of interest. And those could be from checking accounts like from Charles Schwab. And sometimes it's useful to have a debit card if you need to withdraw cash, and usually get that with a checking account. But I wouldn't just withdraw cash for the sake of spending it normally unless you're in a foreign country and you need to get around with spending cash in that foreign country. But most of the time I like using credit cards for most of my spending. So with very few exceptions of using a debit card, to me a checking account is just a springboard to make your money be allocated to other types of accounts that are way more productive and grow your cash at way better rates. And places that I like to look for maybe new types of checking accounts if I ever want to open a new one would be places like on NerdWallet or Bankrate. And those kinds of places can show what are some of the best attributes and also what are some of the pros and cons of getting certain types of checking accounts. Account number 2 is a savings and or money market account. And these terms are almost interchangeable to me because traditional savings accounts give almost no yield. Like, it feels like a lot of savings accounts just give fractions of pennies to the dollar of what you might deposit into them. And I usually find more money on the streets than I do in my own savings account. So that's why I usually opt to put money in a money market account, which is very remarkably similar to a savings account. So for the purpose of this type of account, I would just treat them both as your savings account. So this can be for your emergency fund or other important things you're saving for, like life events that you need to save a lot of money for, like buying a house or getting married or having kids. There's so many things that you might want to save in a savings account so that you think about it as it's not money that should be spent. And or it can also be your war chest for investments, that when you have the right opportunity to invest, then you can move money out of your money market account and into an investment account so you can then buy and scoop up a lot of securities at great prices. But anyway, before we get a little bit too ahead of ourselves, a money market account is usually when banks lend out your money, and they can lend it either to other banks or put them into short-term bonds or notes. And these could take the form of treasury bill notes or bonds, and they could also be municipal bonds or certificates of deposit. There are all different kinds of short-term money lending financial instruments that can make up a money market account. So that's what people are usually referring to when they talk about money market. And for most consumers, think of money market in the context of a savings account. And you can also look up a bunch of lists on what different websites recommend for a savings account. And usually ones like high yield savings accounts or money market accounts are what you want to look for. And this example from Investopedia shows that right now the highest high yield savings account would be from Sally Mae's Smarty Pig account. And it almost sounds a little bit too good to be true at a whopping 0.7%. And if we multiply that by, let's say you deposit $1,000, that gets you $7 at the end of a year, which is pretty low actually. Like, I remember the days when I could open a high yield savings account years ago and then earn anywhere from 2 to 3%. So that same $1,000 would get me from 20 to 30 bucks a year. But unfortunately, we have record low interest rates, and until those change and go up again, we will expect to see more low yields in savings and money market accounts for the foreseeable future. So we got to just do the best we can and pick these. So feel free to check out different types of money market or savings accounts. And there's also more options from places like Bankrate and NerdWallet. And also just keep in mind that it's important to try to make sure any kind of money market or savings account is definitely FDIC insured, which means it's insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which means that the US government created this institution to help protect from people doing a bank run. And this came from the era of the Great Depression in the 1930s, when people panicked and then rushed to the banks and took out all their money. So in order to avoid a bank run, they have ensured that people's deposits of money into bank savings and money market accounts can usually be up to $250,000 per account. And that's a good thing. So maybe if you have more than 250K, you could have different kinds of accounts, and each of them would be insured for up to that 250K. So if you're in that position, you probably don't even need to be watching this video because you've probably got it made. But just so we know, it's important to look that any kind of account that we want to save our money in is FDIC insured. Number 3 is a 401k or similar workplace retirement plan. And usually your employer will offer these to you through a brokerage firm, and it might also be considered a custodial account. But basically, these brokerage firms are designated to try to have a fiduciary duty to offer you the best kinds of funds or other securities that you can invest in that they've thoroughly vetted and that are considered to be appropriate for a 401k type of investment. And you might see employers offering 401ks through entities like Fidelity or Principal or TIAA, and I'm sure there are plenty of others that offer 401ks. And if you're self-employed, you can get what's called a solo 401k. So definitely look into workplace related types of retirement accounts. And often, but not always, there's an employer match that can come along with a 401k. So let's say you contribute 5% of your gross salary, and they might match that to an amount that's either the same. So they might match 1-to-1 or give you also 5% to contribute to your 401k, or they might give you more or less than that amount. And either way, you can choose to contribute in a pre-tax way, so you don't get taxed on your contribution to your 401k, but then you get taxed later in life when you start withdrawing it. Or you can be taxed and contribute post-tax to your 401k, and then you grow your investments in the 401k tax-free, and you eventually might be taxed on it based on at age 72 with the required minimum distributions applying to both pre-tax and post-tax 401ks. But if you want to avoid some of that, you might be able to roll your account over to a Roth IRA, so definitely look into that. And if you want more details, like I go through the benefits and things to consider with a 401k, definitely check out my video where I explain 401ks and pension plans and also options for self-employed persons. And that can give you a start on taking advantage of a 401k plan. Number 4 is a Roth IRA, and you could also do a traditional IRA, but I don't mind paying taxes now for the opportunity to grow my initial principal or contributions tax-free and then be able to withdraw both my initial principal and my earnings tax-free during retirement. And I think that Roth IRAs are so awesome that I have so many videos on them. And you could check out one video where I explain the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. And you could see what might be some of the pros and cons, so you can evaluate which type of account might make sense for you. And there's nothing wrong with actually having both types of accounts. Like, let's say you contributed pre-tax money to your 401k at an employer, and then you want to roll it over. You can do that with rolling it first to a traditional IRA, and then if you want to pay taxes on it, you could then do a backdoor conversion of that traditional IRA into a Roth IRA. And the other thing I like is that we can contribute up to $6,000 a year if we're under 50, and over 50 you can contribute $7,000 a year to the Roth IRA. And I like using that as a vehicle to grow my retirement investments. And then I also have another video where I suggested the best places to open a Roth IRA, and these include entities like the forever popular Vanguard, and there's also Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, E-Trade, Alvest. There are many kinds of brokerage accounts where you can open a Roth IRA, so definitely feel free to check out that video too. Number 5 is a health savings account. And I wish I had heard about this much sooner in life and been able to take advantage of the fact that this is almost a secret retirement account, but it has the face as though you're primarily saving up for your medical expenses, which you are. So with a health savings account, you're required to have a high deductible health insurance plan. So this is the amount that you pay before your insurance carrier picks up the rest of your medical bill. And even though you might have to deal with having a high deductible, to me, I think that's worth it if you're generally a healthy person like I am, and you want to save up for retirement as well as for your medical expenses when you're older. So unlike a Roth IRA, the HSA is triple tax advantage where your contributions are tax-free. So that's not what the Roth IRA can offer because that's after tax. And then 2, you also get to withdraw any amount from your HSA tax-free for qualified medical expenses at any time. And then 3, you get to grow your investments in the HSA tax-free as well. And then by the time you hit age 65, you just have to pay income tax. But if you're using the money for medical expenses, you don't pay any taxes on it still. So I think that this type of account is amazing. And if you're a single person, you can contribute $3,600 a year. And if you have a family, it can be up to $7,200 a year in the year 2021. And I think that this type of account is amazing, and I wish that I could again, be able to have had this much sooner in life. And also I kind of wish that I could contribute more to this account. Like, it would be awesome if it was the same amount you could contribute as a Roth IRA, like at least $6,000, but I'll take what I can get. And the other cool thing about this HSA is that you also have access to all the types of securities that you might want to invest in, just like a Roth IRA can invest in. So whether that's index or mutual funds or ETFs or stocks and bonds, and lots of kinds of securities are what you can invest in both an HSA and Roth IRA. And then also, if you want to learn more about the nitty-gritty details, I compared the benefits and conditions of an HSA to also a flexible spending account, and as well as a health reimbursement arrangement. So feel free to check out that video, as well as if you want to learn more, definitely check out some lists online. Like, there's one from Investopedia that I'm sharing, this list that they've put together, and you can go to their website to check it out some more, as well as you can search at hsasearch.com over 700 types of HSA accounts. So my favorite ones are the ones that I don't have to pay any fees for. I think that it's a little bit too much to have to pay fees when there are options that don't require any fees to pay. So definitely check out what's available and take advantage of an HSA if it makes sense for you. Number 6, individual brokerage account. And maybe you've maxed out all you can with your annual contributions to your tax advantage retirement plans, where you contributed $19,500 to your 401k or $6,000 to your Roth IRA and $3,600 to your HSA. And now you want to have another type of account with which to invest and or to trade. And I'm all about investing, so that's what I'm going to suggest you check out more of my videos as to how you can learn how to invest, as well as with an individual brokerage account. This can look like your other types of retirement plan accounts. Like, you could have it at a similar brokerage firm, like let's say Fidelity. You could have one-stop shopping with Fidelity across all kinds of accounts that you might need and use from your work and or for your individual trading or investing activities. So definitely check out different types of online brokers you could be applying to and using, and NerdWallet has a list of them, and there's definitely all kinds of articles describing all different kinds of brokerage accounts. So definitely be on the lookout for what makes sense to you, and have one of these after you've maxed out your tax advantage plans and you still have an appetite for investing more. And last but not least, number 7, credit cards. And this is another type of account that I think is tremendously useful, so that anything that you generally spend on, you get some money back or you get some kind of reward for doing the activity. And not that you're necessarily doing activities for the sake of collecting points or rewards, but it's kind of nice that you're not just spending cash and not getting anything in return for it, but by using credit cards responsibly, you can benefit by taking advantage of cash back and travel rewards points. And I like collecting those things because I know that I'm always paying my credit card balances in full and I'm never late with my credit card payments. So that's emphasis on using credit cards responsibly. And you can check out sites like, again, NerdWallet. They have a bunch of different kinds of credit cards that they've reviewed, and you can check out what makes sense for you and your needs. But definitely try to use credit cards because they can also build up your credit. And when you're applying for loans, like if you want to get a mortgage or a car loan, it helps to have a credit score so that people can know if you're credit worthy and be able to trust that you'll repay a loan if and when you need one. And I hope that helps you. And again, like I said, none of this is sponsored, so I'm not suggesting you necessarily get any of these types of names. But if they're helpful to you, check them out, shop around, make sure you're fully knowledgeable about what you might be signing up for. And if you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe. And I wish you well on your journey to reaching financial freedom. Till next time.